The B-17 that crash-landed in the Pacific after losing 3 engines. An incredible story of survival in World War II. During World War II, the B-17 bomber was known as the Flying Fortress. This American military aircraft was famous for its toughness and ability to survive extreme damage in combat. But one story in particular stands out among all others, that of a B-17 that managed to crash land in the Pacific Ocean after losing 3 of its 4 engines. What was the B-17? The Boeing B-17 was a heavy bomber used by the United States during the war. It had 4 powerful engines, a crew of up to 10 men, and was equipped with several machine guns for defense. The plane was designed to fly long distances and drop bombs on enemy targets. Its nickname, Flying Fortress, came from its ability to take heavy damage and still make it home. The mission gone wrong. The story begins with a routine bombing mission over the Pacific Theater. The B-17 crew took off from their base, ready to complete their assigned mission. Everything seemed normal at first. The crew consisted of experienced airmen who had flown together many times before. They knew their aircraft well and trusted it completely. As they approached their target area, enemy fighters appeared in the sky. Japanese Zero fighters were fast and deadly, and they quickly engaged the American bomber. The battle in the sky was intense and frightening. Bullets and shells filled the air around the B-17. The engines began to fail. During the fierce combat, the B-17 took several direct hits. The first engine was hit by enemy fire and immediately caught fire. The pilot had to shut it down quickly to prevent the fire from spreading to the fuel tanks. Flying a B-17 on 3 engines was difficult but possible. The crew remained calm and continued their mission. But the attack wasn't over. Minutes later, a second engine was damaged beyond repair. Now the bomber was struggling to stay in the air with only 2 engines working. The pilot fought with the controls, trying to keep the heavy aircraft level. The co-pilot helped by adjusting the remaining engines to maximum power. Then, disaster struck again. A third engine sputtered and died, leaving the B-17 with only 1 functioning engine. This should have been impossible. No one believed a B-17 could fly on just 1 engine, especially when fully loaded and far from base. The laws of physics seemed to be against them.
The impossible decision. The pilot faced an impossible choice. They were hundreds of miles from the nearest friendly airfield, flying over the vast Pacific Ocean. With only 1 engine, they couldn't maintain altitude for long. The plane was slowly descending toward the water below. The crew quickly discussed their options. They could bail out and parachute into the ocean, hoping to be rescued by friendly ships, or they could try something that had never been done before: attempt to land the massive bomber on the water's surface. The pilot made a bold decision. He would try to ditch the plane in the ocean. This was extremely dangerous because the B-17 was not designed for water landings. The impact could break the aircraft apart, and even if they survived the landing, the plane would sink quickly. Preparing for the crash landing. The crew worked frantically to prepare for the water landing. They threw out everything heavy that wasn't essential, including ammunition, equipment, and personal items. This would make the plane lighter and easier to control. They also secured themselves in their positions and prepared the emergency life rafts. The pilot carefully chose a spot in the ocean that looked relatively calm. He lowered the landing gear partially to help slow the plane down, then raised it again at the last moment to avoid catching on the water. The single working engine roared at full power, giving them every bit of thrust it could provide. As they descended toward the water's surface, every crew member held their breath. The water rushed up to meet them. The pilot pulled back on the controls, trying to level the plane for the smoothest possible landing. The moment of impact. The B-17 hit the water with tremendous force. The impact threw the crew members against their restraints. Water exploded around the aircraft, and the sound was deafening. The plane skipped once, twice across the surface, like a stone thrown across a pond. Then it settled into the water and began floating. Miraculously, the fuselage held together. Water began pouring in through holes and cracks, but the crew had precious minutes before the plane would sink. They quickly deployed the emergency life rafts and grabbed whatever survival supplies they could carry. One by one, the crew members escaped through the emergency exits. They inflated their life vests and swam away from the sinking bomber. Within minutes, the B-17 disappeared beneath the waves, taking with it many memories and stories of its service. The rescue. The crew floated in their life rafts for several hours, exposed to the sun and the endless ocean. They had managed to save some water, emergency rations, and a radio transmitter. They sent out distress signals, hoping someone would hear them. Their prayers were answered when an American patrol boat spotted them in the water. All crew members were rescued alive, though exhausted and suffering from exposure. They had survived an ordeal that should have killed all of them.
The legacy. This incredible story became legendary among B-17 crews. It demonstrated the amazing durability of the Flying Fortress and the skill and courage of its crews. The fact that a B-17 could fly on one engine long enough to reach a ditching site and that the crew survived the water landing seemed almost miraculous. This story reminds us of the bravery of the men who flew these missions during World War II. They faced incredible dangers every day, knowing that each mission could be their last. Their courage, teamwork, and determination helped win the war and preserved freedom for future generations. Today, this story is still told as an example of what human courage and engineering excellence can achieve when pushed to the absolute limit.